Private equity. It sounds impressive, doesn't it? But what does it really mean? For some, it means untold wealth. For others, it means the accentuation of inequality. For many, it's a world of mystery and high stakes. What is private equity? How does it work? And why could it be the future of your career as a CA? Today, we are joined by Naairah Motala, CASA, Chief Operating Officer and Director at Ascension Capital Partners, a majority black-owned private equity fund manager headquartered in Pretoria. We discuss this incredible vehicle for growth and change in business called private equity. We also chat about her journey into private equity, the significance of due diligence and character due diligence, the word-to-image barrier, memory palaces for enhanced memory and learning, why native speakers of Asian languages are good at math, and more. I hope you enjoy. My travelers on the road. Happy Private Equity Month! Woo, woo, woo! Okay, guys, so this March, it's going to be Private Equity Month. We're going to be interviewing private equity professionals, CAs, of course, to get an insight into what this thing is and how you can, through your CA skills and experience, become a private equity professional. So I hope you guys enjoy this one. I hope you guys are broadened in your mind in terms of your possibilities and just in all ways inspired to consider this industry and consider this path. Naairah is absolutely fantastic. She will be our first private equity professional of this series. With that, on to the episode. Welcome back, my people. This is the Road to CA podcast, the show for aspiring chartered accountants to inspire, empower, and inform the difference makers of tomorrow. Today, guys, we're here for technically part 2, very, very embarrassingly on my part, but we're joined by a woman of excellence. She's a CA, by the way, CASA. She's not just excellent, though, for the sake of it. She's excellent for others, evident in the way that she lives her life with focus on authenticity. And that's what I really appreciate about her. And the initiative that she's actually started for students. She's the Chief Operations Officer at Ascension Capital Partners, a majority black-owned private equity fund manager, and has recently started the Ascension Accelerate student program, which we will chat about later for sure. Most importantly, she is, I think, a student of Mandarin?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. She loves equestrian. We are joined by the woman who is passionate about private equity. We're joined by Naairah Motala. Naairah, how are you?
Hello, Alunga. No, I love your slogan, because our Ascension slogan is quite similar. It's empower, inspire, grow. So, wow. Who stole whose?
I say inspire, empower, and inform specifically because when we are chatting with people like you who have done things and have interesting ideas in their brains, I feel like, where you're at, it inspires. And a lot of the information that you're about to give us empowers us. And obviously through your story and through your experiences, we're going to be informed. So interesting that we align, eh?
Yeah, no, I love it. And that is the amazing purpose of your podcast is, the inform. Because, I've been listening to a few of your episodes and I'm like, wow, I wish I had listened to this when I was a first year student at Wits. This could have changed my life. So, no, really, really impressed.
I am humbled and flattered. Let's go back, Naairah. Let's quickly go back to where this whole CA thing started for you.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I guess going back in time. From school, I did quite well in school. So I knew, going to university was just, mandatory. But I was not very sure, what direction I wanted to go in. And to be honest, I don't feel like school adequately prepares you for making that huge decision. You make like one of the most critical decisions that can, steer your life down such an important path, and you're completely unprepared. So I remember I had various choices of what I wanted to study. I think one of them was architecture. Another one was BA dramatic arts.
Dramatic arts?
Yeah, no, it was very strange.
What were your electives?
No, I didn't even get to that point. And then BCom was the other option. And then I decided, let me sign up for BCom marketing, because I think I just needed to find like a safe kind of option. So I went with that, and I did my first year, and I did well in my first year of university. And it actually came down to a professor when I was registering for my second year of university. And he said, you know what, your marks are really good. Have you considered the CA program? And I was like, oh, okay. And then he's like, just write a conversion exam. And then I did that, and I got into the CA stream, and then I went into financial accounting and joined the CA stream.
That often happens for a lot of people. They like from something else, and then they'll come in, and it's funny, like the people who came from something else, oftentimes they are like a little bit more driven. I don't know, maybe it's because you were searching. Because you were actually searching, you found a fit, as opposed to someone who winds up here, like maybe the parents said this and they're like, okay, why not? They are in your BCom marketing position.
Yeah. And when you've made that shift, you know the value of it. Yeah. So I'm very grateful for that professor, because I'm very grateful that I've gone down the CA route. And CA is one of those things where you just need to make one decision, which is, I want to do the CA route. And essentially almost like the next 7 years of your life is...
Unless you take the scenic route like me. It's 8 years.
7 or 8 years. You don't really have to make any major decisions after that. So, that's a journey then you start, walking through. But very grateful that I got to get this CASA behind my name, because it's opened up many opportunities and experiences for me.
Yeah, opportunities and experiences. Speaking of those,
yes.
Can you actually just walk through your journey into private equity before you explain what private equity is? Because I think it's very interesting. You obviously after CA was when you started to get clearer on it, but where did the journey to private equity come from?
Yeah. So after articles, I decided to get into investment banking. So I was an M&A analyst for a few years. Because the reason why I wanted to go into that field is because I knew how notoriously challenging and intense it was. And I'm all for challenges. So I went for that. And I gained a lot of skills there. And then eventually throughout my career path, I started finding out about private equity, and I got an opportunity to work at a private equity firm. So it's only something I discovered or knew about a lot later in my career. It's not something I knew of.
So even only when you were qualified?
Shucks. Yeah. Sure. It's not something I was really had much exposure to or really heard about. So once I got into it, I started, unpacking and realizing what it's all about. And then since I've discovered it, I haven't looked back. For me, it's been an amazing, journey. And the thing is about private equity, it covers an entire, deal life cycle, or it covers like from the beginning, like which is fundraising to finding transactions, executing transactions, then living with the deals that you've done and creating value in these portfolio companies, and then eventually exiting these businesses and then generating a return for investors.
Actually, I love that.
It covers, it's so broad. It covers so many skills, so many experiences. It's really a fun career to be in.
Okay. What is private equity?
Okay.
Let's take the cat out the bag.
Okay. Private equity is essentially investing in unlisted markets. So typically you'd have a private equity fund, and generally there's a fund term, and you can, fundraise from investors. It could be institutional investors, it could be pension funds, insurance companies, banks, high net worth individuals. And basically you have, a pool of funds which then you can use to deploy into unlisted investments. So you get various types of funds. You could just have, your sector agnostic funds where it invests in equity of, businesses. You could get, debt funds that just issue debt instruments. You get sector-specific funds like a healthcare fund. So the various funds can have different themes or investment thesis.
Ascension is more agnostic.
Yes, we're more sector agnostic. So you invest in those businesses and essentially give investors access to investments that they would never ordinarily have access to. Because I know, the listed markets, any person can invest in shares on the JSE, but as you may be aware, over the years, the number of listed shares has been decreasing because delistings have been, there's been a number of delistings every single year. So the number of companies available on the listed market in South Africa is actually reducing. So investors are looking for alternative places to generate returns. And private equity is one of those asset classes that aims to deliver superior investment returns. So typically a minimum IRR would be 25%. So, it's we look for businesses that, have the ability or propensity for growth. And we're part of that story because as a private equity fund manager, you partner with management teams and you're an active investor. So, the alternative would be being a passive investor, for example, listed shares. There's not much you can do once you buy your listed share. You're a passive investor. But on the private equity front, you're very much an active, involved investor. We generally take, significant minority, up to majority stakes. So we do have significant influence or control of businesses. So through that influence, we're able to help give strategic direction. We serve on the boards and be part of a value creation strategy for these businesses.
Oh, I love that. So let's zoom out, right? That value creation organic, like the diagram where you have the 6 capitals in, you have your enterprise processes and operations, and you have like the valuable output out. Private equity, as I'm understanding it, is for sure, it's, I guess, grounded or rooted in the financial capital. That is definitely one of the inputs that a fund will provide. But the beauty of private equity, and you mentioned it just briefly now about how broad it is and how many skills you gain and just how, it's just so ubiquitous. You are actually, although you are grounded or rooted in financial capital, you have your hands everywhere. Like wherever the bottlenecks are, that's where private equity lies, because that's where the growth is. It's such a powerful sort of perspective. And I wanted to ask, what would you say are like the skills and knowledge that CA specifically has given you that's contributed to your effectiveness in private equity?
I would say, strong financial acumen, because I think understanding that is critical when you're working with businesses. Just understanding, governance, professional environments, and interacting with management teams. So CA has given me a lot of skills. I wouldn't say, it's coming in as a CA. I also serve as a non-executive director on a lot of these portfolio companies. I'm not necessarily an industry expert. I haven't worked in those businesses.
Sure.
So coming in from the outside, I'm like an outsider that's almost applying my own independent, financial analysis, and I'm able to contribute, based on my financial acumen, understanding how governance works, and be able to contribute, on a strategic level. Yeah.
That's what I love about the CA. I think you're already learning where the strategic sort of thinking happens. Because strategic thinking happens at the governance level. It happens at the executive level where you're talking about like evaluation. That's where strategic thinking happens. It doesn't necessarily happen at, not to beat up any other professions, but let's say at the marketing level. Like marketing is marketing. It's crucial. Marketing and sales, crucial for the business. Sometimes, in some cases, it is the lifeblood of certain types of businesses, and it's absolutely essential to have a business. You don't have a business if you don't have sales and marketing, but it's not holistically strategic. It's like if you understand marketing and sales, that is which part of the value creation organogram? It's probably just marketing and sales. So you're bringing in money in some case.
But you need a strategic direction in which you are following.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
I also love that you've mentioned how you're on various boards in a non-executive capacity. Can you share with me some of your experiences on those boards? Some of the salient ones that you say, this is the most fun or the coolest as a non-exec.
Wow. Yeah. No, there's a few that are quite fun, and some businesses it's almost just assisting them putting the governance in place. So some of the businesses lacked board subcommittees, for example, social and ethics committees.
We are learning that today.
Really? Did you?
Well,
and it's very
not today, but like a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I think it's things like that. Businesses that never had that or didn't have a focus on it, and then coming in as a private equity investor and actually, chairing or leading those types of discussions. And then in doing so, look, BE then starts getting addressed, employees start getting addressed, communities. There's like a whole network of things that start happening because of, that governance that you've brought to the business. Yeah, and it's really critical. And it's these softer, non-financial things that actually indirectly have financial impacts, create sustainable businesses, and actually build stronger businesses.
You've spoken about this idea of character due diligence. Yes. I know you've spoken about that. Okay, first just to quickly explain for the layman due diligence,
yes,
and then explain now this idea of character due diligence, because I think it's so important to understand. Like literally the other day we were doing risks of material misstatement at financial statement level, and I was like, that is so crazy how we're learning to think on that strategic level, on the financial statement level. And it's sort of like when you mention this idea of character due diligence, I was like, that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with like when you have a situation in a company where there's 2 shareholders and 2 executives, you're going to have incentive to manipulate the financial statements. And, you think at these levels, and a character due diligence might say, if there's king non-compliance, then that might negatively affect management's integrity, which is a character thing. But even further, I think what you're going to explain now is like, what are the personalities of these people? Like on the ground, not just necessarily on the paper and the scenario and the information, but like how do you when you see this person, how do they treat their workers? Things like those. But please explain due diligence and the character due diligence.
Yeah, so due diligence relates to when we are looking for an investment opportunity. So once we've identified and screened an opportunity, we'll typically do a due diligence. And that would include, a financial, a legal, a tax, even an ESG due diligence. So that's essentially just testing and digging into the numbers and unpacking the business so that we know all the information and identify any risk areas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the character due diligence that I mentioned, it's a very informal term that, we use in our team, but it's not a formalized thing, but we're in the business of people.
Mm-hmm.
Businesses are made and broken because of people.
Yeah.
So when we're looking for management teams to partner with, it's very important that we actually, spend time with them, get to know them on a personal level, understand what kind of character are we dealing with. And there have been some instances where we've walked away from transactions because of the people, where we didn't deem that character to be one that we want to do business with.
I'm thinking about pre-engagement procedures. I'm thinking about, when you're doing pre-engagement in audit and you're assessing whether a client's the right fit for you, it's amazing, because we have all of these things, right, on paper and in our curriculum that say, in our pre-engagement procedures, this is what we look for. But there's those things that you can't see on paper that are also part of your pre-engagement considerations.
I love how you always find the link between, what's happening in the practical world to what you're learning in university. Yeah.
I think it's so important because, that's how, for me at least, that's how we bring the textbook to life.
Yeah.
Because a textbook is it's not words on a page.
Yeah.
It's symbols for something that's actually happening out there. I think that's another. There's this idea of the word to image barrier that I've been thinking about, right? So it's basically this idea of, I have this theory that a lot of the top students, and especially just intelligence in general, it comes down to not knowing how to read. So where someone, where me, the layman, sees an APPLE, the top student sees a red, juicy piece of round sweetness. That's what they see. Immediately. Just boom. And so now they're a lot quicker. They don't see the words first and then have to translate into isiXhosa or translate into English and then translate into isiXhosa. So that's the thing that's happening with a lot of students. There's this
it's just words.
It's just
you're reading
word,
the words,
and then
but you can't.
It doesn't come in, so then you have to read it again. And the word to image barrier is a lot of the issue in education, I believe. A teacher's inability to take their experience, which is so sad because all CA lecturers are CAs. It's funny. All of them are CAs. So they have this great experience, such a vast and rich experience. But their failure to take those experiences and bring life to them, not just give you words to speak in, obviously there's jargon, but just to speak into this high level jargon, but to give you a picture. Yeah. To give you something.
Storytelling would be good. If they could tell it in a story or an example, and then you can actually picture it, and then you don't need to study it because you remember the story.
There's also this, I haven't read the book yet, but the guy who's basically the king of memorization. I think it was a memory competition, you had to memorize a list of numbers or something. He's the best in the world. And there's this idea of memory palaces that it's so useful for memorizing things. So the human mind isn't designed to memorize words, but it is designed to memorize places. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors, they were having to go everywhere foraging. So they had to know this is where that tree is. And so if they know where that tree is, they can go there and they'll have basically a basic map of all the trees within this 20-kilometer radius. And therefore our assets, our architecture and our hardware for that is phenomenal. If you take your audit process, the whole audit process, you go from pre-engagement and you go to this place and you go to that place. If you take it and you actually put it in places in your house, in your mind. So there's 4 places in your house. There's when you enter the room, when you enter the door, that's pre-engagement. Now you can't go in until you get through pre-engagement, and maybe on the door you've got a few elements to that. You've got your do you have money in the actual company to be able to pay the audit fee, all these things. So now you're mapping stuff on the door. When you walk into your house, you see on the right there's a little couch. That couch is risk assessment and planning. And so you've mapped all the aspects of risk assessment and planning there, and then you go further and you go to field work. It's down there in the kitchen. Here's field work. It's in the kitchen.
Wow, have you done this?
No, I'm doing it now.
Oh,
Doing it now, but I think it could be valuable for other people. And then you eventually get to completion where you get to the garage and you can go. So memory palaces help with memorizing more. It helps with taking the word and making it an image.
Yeah. And on this topic, it makes me think of Mandarin.
Oh, wow.
Do you know why? So, in English, we have numbers, and numbers have words. And then after number 10, we get, the number 11 and 12 and 13. But then if I have to take that from a Mandarin perspective, you also, in Mandarin, you have 1 to 10. But then when you get to 11, the word for 11 is not an arbitrary name, because 11 is a very arbitrary name.
Yeah.
In Mandarin, it's 10-1. And 12 is 10-2.
Sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And then 20 is 2-10.
I mean...
So, yeah, in Mandarin, your association with numbers, you don't need to do a translation of a word into a number and then process it, because the word is the number.
There's fewer building blocks.
Yeah, because right now in English, we have arbitrary names for a number, which you then have to process. Oh, okay, the word 50 is 5, tens.
Sure, that's huge, because I think, what was it? I read a book called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. It's the study of basically he studied the like those absolutely unrealistically successful people. He studied those instances, the outliers, and he said they're not just outliers, there actually is a science to that success. So he studied all that science to that success, and he found, which is very similar to what you're talking about, the way that Asian languages typically are is, and it's just explaining to me, this is the nitty gritty, the actual nitty gritty. It's such that they are more likely to be good at math. It's not that Asians are just good at math because of the gods, or the
language was just
the language
which removed a certain barrier.
The language removed a barrier, which is just it's so crazy.
Yeah.
I remember you mentioned active versus passive investors. You remember that idea of DDI investors that I mentioned last time? Basically, dentists, doctors. I forgot what it stood for in full, but the idea of smart money versus dumb money. I love it, because I think it's an idea that I want to draw to around the value that you provide being more than capital. Because I think there's this misconception in South Africa, or I guess just maybe it's a general misconception, that investment, the whole investment realm is just about money. What would you say is, if you could condense it down, the value that you provide?
Yeah, no, I think money is one aspect, but
to be continued in part 2. See you next week.